begging for too many figures on this stream, but I'd be very remiss if I didn't say one, because a good friend of mine is watching. He's been wanting for a long time. So I have 3 words for you, sir. Please, Strife. Please.
Okay.
I won't push beyond it.
Hey YouTube, what goes on? And welcome to Disavowed Action Figures, bringing you another action figure review, actually action figures review. Here today we're taking a closer look at the Marvel Legends X-Men 60th Anniversary Stryfe Villains freaking 5-pack. So pumped to have this. I've wanted Strife in my collection since I started collecting. I wasn't willing to pay that crazy price to get the original version, but here it is in a 5-pack. So I did have this pre-ordered at Hasbro Pulse, but I did see Amazon had it in stock, and it literally was just delivered today. So can't wait to crack this thing open, take a look at it, and see what these figures look like. So a little bit different than what I'll usually do here on the channel. We are going to do all 5 figures, but honestly, I'm not going to do articulation and a lot of crazy up-close stuff with these, as Strife and Random, honestly, the 2 I really want to take a look at, as well as Pretty Boy looking pretty cool. So the others will do some comparisons and such, but for you watch the channel often, you know I love freaking packaging. This box is gigantic. Very cool comic book-esque look right here with all 5 figures. X-Men 60 for 60 years. Marvel Legends 2023, cool to see that. Obviously, X-Men logo. On the top, we get the 60 years logo going on right there, same as the blob. On the sides, I'll go sideways here, we do get the comic book artistic renderings right there of each of the characters. On the other side, we do get a picture of the actual figure going on right there. So very cool packaging. Obviously, legalese and crap on the bottom. Can't quite get it there. And on the back, we again do get all the figures in the wave. This is great. Let's get these guys out of the packaging, take a closer. And here is Strife along the other 4 action figures in this 5-pack. And I'm kind of overwhelmed. I've never really reviewed a 5-pack all at once. So again, I'm not going to focus too much on articulation here. It'll more or less be up-close looks at the figures themselves and some comparisons. But yeah, they look great. Let me know in the comments. One thing I've noticed with these figures coming in the boxes as opposed to being with the plastic windows, the feet and the legs tend to be all asunder. It took me a while just to get Strife's feet and the feet of some of the other characters here, other figures, set up to actually stand. They were either, toes pointing down, out to the side. The rocker was all over the place at the ankles. Let me know in the comments. Do you see that problem as well? Because I have noticed it with some other figures that are just in the boxes as opposed to having the plastic on the front. But overall, first impressions, these look great. I'm basically going to go through and show you up close what these look like with some comparisons, starting with the character or the figure I'm least excited about, working up to the one I'm most excited about, which obviously is Strife. So we'll start off with 0, because I had 0 interest in this action figure. I'm sorry. I'll be honest. I've read Marvel Comics most of my life since I was a kid. I've never even heard of 0. I haven't. When I first saw this, I thought it was some version of the spot, even though I guess it's not really a spot. It's a circle or a 0. Looking at this thing, again, we get the portal effect, which I like. We get the alternate hands that go with it. Needless to say, this is the bare minimum with this action figure. It's a 5-pack, so you're going to get reuse. You're going to get some basic things in here. That's why it's a 5-pack. I mean, taking a closer look at him here, again, they did a nice enough job with the circles or the zeros, whatever you want to call them, on him. We're not going through all articulation here, but, this is basic articulation. Obviously, it is pinned, so you get double jointed elbows and things like that. So this just isn't a character or a figure I really have an attachment to. I guess it's done well enough. I'm just not going to speak much on it because, frankly, I don't have much of an interest in it. The fact we got the portal effect is pretty cool. From what I understand from other videos I've seen in the last 6 to 8 months, building up to this coming out, he is a character that is well known to be with Strife. So again, that makes sense to include him here as it is an X-Men character. But overall, again, my thoughts on this guy, take him or leave him. I like the portal effect. Obviously, it's the Doctor Strange one. They added some paint to it right there. So it is what it is. Not that pumped about it, but again, I'm pumped with the 5-pack overall. And figure number 4 out of the figures I was most excited about in this particular 5-pack is Vertigo. Now, again, this is going to be a lot of reuse. I believe it's the Invisible Woman head sculpt being reused here. We will do a comparison shortly. Most notably, for my connection to this character, this figure, would be from the X-Men the Animated Series, where she was a member of Mr. Sinister's Nasty Boys. I think it was in the opening 2 episodes of X-Men Season 2. So the animated series coming back, that is kind of cool. As far as, how she looks up close, they did a good enough job with the actual paint on her. It's not terrible, but again, it's just not something I was overly excited for. Also, it does not really resemble the cartoon character very much. Cards on the table there. It is not the new female Buck, unfortunately. So you're going to get, obviously, the rotation there at the elbows. This is the old female Buck. But again, to get these 5-packs, that is what they often do. It's about reuse. Also, we do get 2 accessories with her. If you want to consider them that, we do get the 2 punching fists. So again, they gave us something rather than nothing, which typically is something's better than nothing. But we do get those with her.
You speak as if he had a choice. Surrender your will to the Outlanders. Succumb to the power of Vertigo.
And here is a comparison with the Invisible Woman from the Super Skrull Marvel Legends wave. You can see they are similar in height. Let's take a closer look at the actual head sculpts and see if they are the exact same one. Again, I'm not the guy that's really good at making these comparisons, but I thought we would try. And taking a look right there, I think it's safe to say they're pretty much the same, right? The hair looks to be the same. You can see kind of here that piece coming out on the hair on the side, the wisp in the back. This side, yeah, this is the exact same head sculpt, or at least the same hair. Let me know in the comments, is it exact? Because, to me, that looks pretty much exact. But again, you're going to get reuse in these 5-packs. That's, kind of how they make them. But I do have one more comparison I do want to make with Vertigo before we move on. And here is Vertigo standing with Mr. Sinister. This is the regular release, not the cell-shaded X-Men VHS. But we also threw Morph up there. I didn't plan to grab Morph, but I thought, you know what? We're talking X-Men animated series here. And even though she does not really resemble that particular character in the cartoon, Sinister was, the leader of the Nasty Boys, which she was a member of. And also, obviously, Morph was one of Sinister's kind of devoted evildoers for pretty much that entire season. So, yeah, there's a comparison for Marvel Legends Vertigo, some other legends. And now we're cooking with gas. Now we're getting to the action figures I'm the most excited about in this 5-pack. So coming in at number 3 is Pretty Boy from the X-Men Villains, the Reavers. I love being able to add different team members to my shelf. The Reavers have been started for multiple years now with different characters, different figures getting released, represented in this particular team. We obviously had the Build-A-Figure Bonebreaker and Lady Deathstrike most recently. This guy is freaking cool, and I'll tell you what, he got a hell of a lot of accessories with him as well. At first, I wasn't excited about this when I first saw it in the box, other than the fact that he was a Reaver. But in hand, it looks really freaking cool. Again, he is basically a cyborg, more or less, as you can see. They are mutants or humans that basically are being used and given these enhancements, so to speak. The Reavers also had a key role in X-Men the Animated Series in one of the episodes. So it's cool seeing him. Articulation on him. We're not going to alter articulation, but articulation is good. I almost get like, what's that from Star Wars Mandalorian, C-11, or the hell that robot's name is. Almost get vibes of him here, except he has the human head, obviously. But again, articulation for him is pretty well done. I get the double jointed elbow going on. This is a cool kind of setup here, how they did this. It's neat that you can obviously rotate him all the way around, much like you'd expect a cyborg to be able to. Obviously, head goes all the way around as well. And again, they get sucked into doing all the articulation, right? I don't want to do that. But again, overall, this is a really freaking cool guy. I'll tell you what, let's take a minute, shut the camera off, and get him holding his guns and show off some of these accessories. So Pretty Boy does come with some decent accessories, as I mentioned. He comes default in the packaging with the 2 closed fist punching hands, but he does come with the figure trigger hands as well, that he can hold the guns rather well. You also do get the 2 different blast effects. I have one in the gun right here, other one's laying down here. You also kind of get like the smoke effect looking. They are like a greenish color, which I guess is the blaster. You can notice that the guns are slightly different. This one does kind of have, I guess it's the clip of the magazine in the bottom. This one does not. So the guns are separate. They're different, one than the other. So that's kind of cool that they kind of give us something different for each. But again, overall, this guy looks pretty freaking great. I dig the accessories, and he's going to do really cool. Look really cool on my shelf with my other X-Men Reavers. So coming at number 3 out of these 5 figures in this 5-pack is Pretty Boy. let's do some comparisons. And here is our Build-A-Figure Bone Breaker hanging out with Lady Deathstrike and also Pretty Boy. I never mentioned peg holes at the bottom of the feet just because I don't, but you can see that they do have the pegs on each of the sides of the tank for Bone Breakers. They're very cool. You can use Deathstrike. I kind of have her knee like somewhat across the back there. Him, I just kind of have him posed there. He's not using the peg hole, but these look freaking great together. So again, you throw some more Reavers into this, it's going to look really cool on your shelf. And again, having flashbacks, X-Men Animated Series, whenever I see that guy cackling at me with the gun. So very cool paramilitary unit here of the Reavers. Loving this guy on my shelf. All right, let's go to the number 2 figure I was most excited about in this particular 5-pack. And coming in at number 2 out of the 5 figures in this pack is X-Men's Random. I am so pumped to have this. Holy smokes, this guy looks freaking cool. From what I understand, his mutant power, in addition to other things he can do, he could also change his size. So some people were upset that he maybe should have been a little bit larger, but I guess technically like an Apocalypse or something like that, where the mutant could actually change their mass or their size, you can kind of get away with that and say, well, he could have made himself bigger if he wanted to. But he looks freaking badass. Real quick, I remember being at RetroCon 2022 with the great RG walking around, also with NJ Tree that day. And we did walk past a retro-carded X-Men Toy Biz version of this on a peg. And I specifically remember saying to Art, hey, Art, do you think we'll ever get Random as a Marvel Legends release? And we kind of laughed about it, and boom, here he is. Again, we're not going all in on articulation tonight, just taking a closer look at these and doing some comparisons, but this guy looks great. The sunglasses came out cool. We get the bandana or do-rag going on. Tattoo on the side. I guess is that a snake? Yeah, I guess it's a snake. Pretty cool. We get the fangs going on right there coming out of his mouth. That looks really freaking cool. The jacket came out nice. I guess you could probably take this off if you wanted to. I'm not going to mess around with it because I always picture him with the jacket on. The eyebrows kind of peeking through behind the sunglasses right there. Some paint here on the zipper of the jacket and also the belt going around. We have the collar on the back. Here's the back of the bandana. We get another tattoo going on right there. I think that's a heart. Yeah, it's a heart right there. Again, of course, the big sell with this guy is this freaking incredible looking arm right here. We get upper bicep swivel. This does not swivel, so don't. It'll break. It's basically like attached like any other arm would be. You can see the pins right there. It came out great. You could probably put some blast effects and things inside here. I think I saw in somebody's video they mentioned using the bazooka missiles or the bazooka weapons that came along with the G.I. Joe Classified, shoving those in there would look pretty cool, or some energy effects. But overall, this guy looks pretty freaking cool. Got a belt on him right there. It's a free moving piece. Yeah, this is great. Again, articulation is what it is. It's not going to be fantastic on this thing because there's a lot of reuse, but it looks freaking cool. And for me, just having this on my shelf, it is a win all freaking day. Let's do some comparisons with Random. So one of the more fun things of doing these reviews are the comparisons. I love doing these. So here we did get the X Factor figures from the back of the X-Men shelf here on display, as Random is well known for being in the X Factor comic book. Here he is scaling with Polaris and also Havoc from our 90s 2-pack, as well as Build-A-Figure Strong Guy, which I did a video back in the day, probably about maybe 2 years ago, whenever that wave came out, about building on a budget. And I more or less ran around Allentown, PA, trying to find that entire wave on clearance or on sale. And I did pretty well, and I kind of did like a cost comparison thing. Check it out. It's a pretty fun video. I remember doing it. I was pretty proud of it at the time. But overall, you can see how Random does compare. As stated, I believe, as part of his mutant power, he can actually grow if he wants to. So if he wanted to be closer to Strong Guy size, I guess he could. But overall, he looks freaking great with these other 90s X-Men characters. All right, the time has come. Let's go to the number 1 figure I was most excited about in this 5. And coming in at number 1 out of the 5 action figures in this 5-pack is frickin' Strife. I can't begin to tell you how pumped I am to have this in my collection finally. He was originally released back in the day. I think it was in a Toys R Us exclusive wave, Build-A-Figure Jubilee. Let me know in the comments. I didn't really look it up recently. I'm just going off of memory there. So if I'm wrong, feel free to let me know. That figure, super expensive on the aftermarket. Shout out to my good friend Jay Girk, the collector, who's also wanted this forever. So he was also very pumped to see this basically advertised and put up for pre-order. So glad to have him. Again, the thing is, he's not going to do like much as far as, moving around. He's just going to stand on my shelf and look badass. And he freaking does. Everything I've seen and read about says that this is an upgrade from the original Strife. The helmet is freaking awesome. Dwight Stahl was rocking the helmet from the Marvel Legends team when they announced it. You do get an alternate fisted hand on both sides for this guy. Cape came out looking pretty freaking cool. But ultimately, having this to go on my shelf to face off against Cable and X-Force and the X-Men and to basically chill out with Apocalypse and just all sorts of great stuff. Very pumped to have them. A couple of things, I'm not going to do full articulation here tonight, but a couple of things I did kind of hear about. Be careful here. These are soft pieces here. But again, if you have them looking down for too long, they could warp potentially. So you probably want to have that head a little further up so that part of the helmet obviously is not down across the actual chin or the chest. These are pretty soft pieces as well. If they come in, a bench or whatever, just heat them up. They should straighten out. We also get those similar pieces. These are much harder plastic down here as part of the mold, so those don't bend like the spikes do. I guess when you put spikes on an action figure, you need them to be soft. This is a moving piece right here as well on the waist. Obviously, as far as articulation, we're not going full blow articulation here. He will look forward relatively well. The cape's going to screw him up going back. Just the aesthetics overall, we kind of get this like lighter blue right here, which came out looking good in the abdomen. Again, the alternate fist hands are always good. Again, we have some nice mold going on right here on the gauntlets and also on the arms. Again, overall, this thing checks the boxes that I needed to. And it's not going to be the most, again, overly articulated figure, but he's not doing backflips. That's not his thing, right? He's supposed to look freaking badass and intimidating on a shelf. And that's what I wanted out of him. That's what we're getting out of him with this particular figure. So let's do some comparisons with Strife. So the first comparison I knew I was going to have to make when this was announced is with our Cable figure. And again, from what I recall in the comics, Strife is a clone, of course, evil clone of Cable. Cable being the son of Jean Grey and Cyclops. Again, all sorts of shenanigans in X-Force over the years with Strife. I believe they brought him back as well in the last couple of years in the comics. I remember kind of perusing some of those books. That Cable's a great figure too. I tend to forget how awesome a figure that thing actually is. But again, looking at them here, they are relatively similar in size. I'm sure they kept that in mind when they were putting this offering together. Taking a closer look at the head sculpts, you can kind of see in the chin, I think they tried to give them similar chins, similar jaw lines even, because again, they know that these guys are clones of each other. But again, just very pumped to have this in the collection as one of the main X-Men villains I've always wanted, having not had that previous one in my collection. And the second action figure I really needed to compare this to when I first saw it advertised was the Apocalypse Build-A-Figure. And again, given the connections between Strife and Apocalypse, this absolutely needed to happen. And they look really friggin' menacing together. They're going to look really cool on my shelf. And honestly, it's making me want to reconsider an entire X-Men villain shelf. I kind of have them all mixed together on one shelf. Kind of need to put all these guys near each other who are in somewhat of cahoots. And here is Marvel Legends Strife standing back to back with the Marvel Legends 60 Years The Blob figure. And this 60 Years kind of subline, it's going really well. I'm really enjoying a lot of these figures that, a lot of us wanted in our collections, but didn't want to pay all that extra money to get it on the aftermarket. So I'm enjoying this, getting caught up on figures I always wanted. And just to mix up some fun comparisons, here is Marvel Legends Strife, standing with the G.I. Joe classified Sergeant Slaughter, and the NECA Elf figure, which I'm really enjoying a lot here in 2023. And for some other comparisons with other action figure lines and companies, here is Marvel Legends Strife, standing with the John Constantine Mezco release, and also the Plunderlings Feral Cheetah. And here is Marvel Legends Strife, standing back to back with the Valaverse Action Force Trigger, who is partying as always, and the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Big Mother Fragger himself, Lobo. And last, and as everybody likes to say, certainly not least, here is Marvel Legends Strife, staring down the Jazzwares AEW Unrivaled Orange Cassidy action figure. And yeah, Strife doesn't look too intimidated, but Orange Cassidy might just kick him in the shin and run away. And that's going to do it for our Marvel Legends 5-pack X-Men 60 Years review. Very pumped to have this in hand. I believe it was $125.99, something along those lines. I did have it, as I mentioned, on pre-order at Hasbro Pulse, but it came in stock at Amazon to be delivered even sooner, so I switched it over and canceled my Pulse order. Got it from Amazon for free shipping. This thing is pretty great. If you're an X-Men fan, again, these three right here, if you're building your Reavers team, if you have an old X-Factor or X-Force shelf going on, or if you want one of the best Marvel Legends villains, Strife, and again, these Strife being the older figure being so expensive in the aftermarket, this is a great opportunity to pick him up. As far as the Zero and the Vertigo figures, again, if you're an X-Men fan, it's cool to have those. I'm not as psyched about those, but again, you're going to get some reuse in these 5-packs. This is kind of how it works. But I'm very happy with these three in particular. So let me know in the comments, are you thinking about picking this up? Did you pick it up? What are your thoughts on it? Again, we did not get very much into articulation here. I typically do, but I wanted to get through all 5 of these figures in a reasonable amount of time in one video. Let me know, is there something you don't like about the articulation that I maybe didn't notice yet? But again, thank you so much for watching, everybody. If you're new, please consider hitting that subscribe button. It's free for you, doesn't cost you anything, helps us grow the channel tremendously in our march to 4,000 subscribers. Go ahead and hit that bell for notifications. The way YouTube actually notifies you and tells you when we post new content on the channel, like our weekly toy hunts, reviews, and live streams. Leave a comment down below, hit that like button. And for daily toy content and daily toy updates, try checking us out over Instagram and Twitter at Disavowed_12. Hey everybody. If you're going toy this week, please try to remember the 3 Ps of a toy hunt. Patience, persistence, most of all, politeness. Take care, stay healthy, and I'll be seeing all of you at the pegs.